Newshour from the BBC. The 2020 Olympics are due to start at last in 2 weeks' time. But Tokyo will be hosting a very different sort of games. The highly infectious Delta variant of the coronavirus is seeing to that, and today came the news that the organisers have decided that all the events staged in Tokyo will be without any fans. Anne Wafula Strike has represented Kenya at the 2004 Paralympics as a wheelchair racer. So what does she make of the decision?
I think athletes will just be glad that they are getting this platform to perform. It will be so sad if it was decided that, we cannot stage these games until such a time when we can allow fans to come in. But on the other hand, it's really sad. It's really sad because I love performing in front of huge crowds. Because of the encouragement, the appreciation, the applause. There's just something about that spurs you on as an athlete. The spirit in the stadiums or in the venues just lights up with the roar of fans. Just imagine an athlete standing on the start line, their names being called out. So and so is representing this nation. And there's no one to cheer or there's nothing happening.
It will feel a bit sterile. I suppose in a sense we've got used to it because we've seen elite sports on TV happen in closed stadiums. But, it is just not the same thing, is it? I'm sure as a participant, but even as a spectator, it feels not like the real article.
Definitely. The Olympics and the Paralympics are going to be really different. For the first time, Olympians and Paralympians, they'll be like, there's really nothing so exciting about coming here. But knowing the spirit and the motivation, the resilience of the athletes who've taken so much time to prepare against so many odds with the corona, they will still be prepared to do their best. The only thing that will be missing is that audience, which is always so encouraging to athletes. It's so different when you are performing in front of a big crowd.
Clearly you're saying that they may enjoy the experience or get sort of motivated by the experience a little bit less without fans. Do you think that the fact that also there is so much opposition in Japan to the hosting of the games because people are worried about COVID, that could take the edge off?
I don't blame the Japanese that they are worried. I would be worried also. But it also depends with what message and signals the government is sending to its own people. If the government is more persuasive, telling people that every athlete who is coming here is protected, then maybe that is something that would give the Japanese people a bit of faith that these people are not just coming into a country and bringing all these thousands and thousands of variants, from wherever they're coming from.
The Paralympian Anne Wafula Strike. As the pandemic first swept around the world, New York was for a time the epicenter. In contrast, these days, hospital admissions for COVID are at a record low. Many restaurants and bars are thriving again, and Broadway is reopening in September. But the damage has been deep. The city has lost 1 million jobs, and some have suffered far more than others, as Lucy Ash has been finding out.
Augustina Velez shows me into her apartment in the New York borough of Queens. She tells me she was panic-stricken when last spring she was laid off work.
I was asking myself, what can I do? I don't have any money. How can we pay the rent? What are we going to eat?
Augustina's husband, Simon, had already lost his restaurant job, explains Angel, Augustina's 13-year-old son.
What was your mum's job? So she was a cleaner at someone's house. She always cleaned for him, but during the pandemic, she lost her job because they thought she would infect the owner. She sometimes just stayed in her room and cried because she was just sad about us just living in the streets.
Mi hijo, con lágrimas en los ojos.
My son told the landlord with tears in his eyes, "You can't make us leave. It's not that we don't want to pay the rent. We do, but we don't have any work, and we're not the only ones."
Last March, there were fewer and fewer customers, and then they told me to empty my locker and leave because they were closing indefinitely. Before the pandemic, Ana Ramirez worked at a restaurant near Times Square. Like Agustina and Simon, Anna came to the US illegally from Mexico. As an undocumented migrant, she didn't qualify for any furlough money when she lost her livelihood. Nothing. We didn't receive a single dollar. We're treated like objects, not like human beings, but we deserve some compensation. That's why we went on hunger strike. Anna and 30 fellow hunger strikers camped in a church by night and demonstrated by day, demanding state aid. Backed by hundreds more protesters, they shut down the bridges, which hundreds of thousands of low-paid immigrant workers cross each day to work in Manhattan. They carried pots and pans, brooms and dish mops, the tools of their trade, along with banners saying, "Who will feed us while we feed you?"
When our country saw one of its worst times, everyone got help with them.
New York Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, once an illegal immigrant herself from Colombia, backed the hunger strikers.
I think there was a lot of fear about coming forward and lobbying for that money because it would almost out you as an undocumented person. Once you have nothing left, what are you going to do? They felt like they had no choice.
Catalina's neighborhood was one of the hardest hit in a city where Black and Hispanic residents were dying from COVID-19 at about twice the rate of white New Yorkers. And those from non-white communities were also more likely to lose their businesses and jobs. After 110 hours without eating, I felt my veins throbbing and I was trembling all the time. On the 23rd day of the hunger strike, city lawmakers finally voted to offer one-time payments to people like Anna. Undocumented workers can now apply for up to $15,600 if they can prove they're New York State residents who were ineligible for unemployment benefits because of their immigration status and that they lost income during the pandemic. New York's $2.1 billion excluded worker fund is the biggest of its kind in the country.
And you can hear more of what Lucy Ash discovered on her visit to New York on this week's edition of Assignment. It's called Missing from Manhattan. And Assignment, our documentary strand, is here on the BBC World Service. From all of us on Newshour, from me, Tim Franks, and the rest of the team here in London, thanks for your company.
You're listening to the BBC World Service, where Dame Tanni Gray-Thompson is celebrating the role of women in sporting history.
Catherine Switzer, Olga Corbett, Althea Gibson, just some of the names pivotal in getting women recognised in sport today.
I mean, that was the moment. That was the pinnacle. That was you're reaching that Mount Everest.
Join me as I celebrate some of the sporting heroines of history.
Tuesday at 8 and 12:30 GMT. And in 30 minutes, it's The Food Chain with Emily Thomas.
And this week, we're getting to the heart of the hive, exploring the human relationship with the honeybee, and asking what these highly sensitive and intelligent creatures can tell us about the world and about ourselves.
The Inquiry is next. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station. Welcome to The Inquiry on the BBC World Service. Nigeria has been on the path to democracy for more than 2 decades.
Nigeria is in reality 2 countries in one.
That journey isn't over yet.
People of different culture, people of different backgrounds coming together without their consent has not been working well.
Stability in the West African country is shaky.
Security forces are extremely stretched and underfunded.
Meanwhile, those in charge are suppressing scrutiny.
It's been particularly intense to work as a journalist. So you are very careful before you put out any stories concerning the government.
So we're asking, is Nigeria becoming impossible to govern? The Inquiry starts after the news.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. President Biden has defended the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan, saying he was not prepared to send another generation of Americans to fight there. The status quo, he said, was not an option. Speaking in the White House, Mr. Biden insisted the U.S. military had achieved its initial goals by punishing the perpetrators of the September 11th attacks.
The United States did what we wanted to do in Afghanistan, to get the terrorists to attack us on 9/11 and deliver justice to Osama bin Laden. We achieved those objectives. We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build, and it's the right and the responsibility of Afghan people alone to decide their future and how they want to run their country.
Mr. Biden accepted that there was uncertainty about the future of Afghanistan as the Taliban continued to gain ground, raising the possibility of a renewed civil war. The acting Prime Minister of Haiti, Claude Joseph, has told the BBC that while an investigation into the murder of the former president is continuing, he believes Jovenel Moïse may have been killed because he had taken on those whom he called Haiti's oligarchs. Mr. Joseph said 6 members of the gang that attacked Moïse's house had been captured and 7 shot dead. Mr. Joseph said the mastermind could be Haitian, but that a number of those captured or killed were foreigners.
The basic information that we have thus far show that they were foreign mercenaries. I understand that he was fighting against some oligarchs in the country also. So we do not know, perhaps there's a link between the fight, against the oligarchs and those foreign mercenaries coming to kill him.
The World Health Organization says Africa has experienced its most devastating week so far of the coronavirus pandemic, with worse yet to come. More details from Rhoda Othiambo.
The WHO's regional director, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, says new infections across Africa are doubling every 18 days. With less than 2% of the African population fully vaccinated, many still remain at risk of becoming severely ill with the disease. But the WHO is optimistic that donations from the US and other countries via the COVAX initiative will help countries here ramp up vaccination campaigns.
Japan's Olympics organizers have agreed the games, which start in 2 weeks' time, will go ahead without spectators because of fears over the more contagious Delta coronavirus variant. The president of Tokyo 2020, Seiko Hashimoto, said she had apologized to all who bought tickets and lamented that the games would take place in such a limited fashion. World News from the BBC. The European Parliament has approved, by an overwhelming majority, a resolution condemning Hungary for a recent law forbidding the depiction of homosexuality and gender change to under 18s. Parliamentarians called on the European Commission to take urgent steps against the Hungarian government. These, they said, should include legal action and the threat to withhold EU funds. Security agents in Belarus have raided several non-state media outlets accused of spreading anti-government information. They've blocked the website of one of the oldest Belarusian newspapers, Nasha Niva, and detained its editor-in-chief with several of his staff. 15 more U.S. states have dropped their opposition to a bankruptcy plan for the drugs firm Purdue Pharma. The maker of the painkiller OxyContin is accused of triggering America's opioid crisis that's killed more than 500,000 people. 10 states have not joined the plan, which aims to resolve several thousand lawsuits brought by communities that allege Purdue and its owners, the Sackler family, contributed to the crisis. Shares on Wall Street have fallen by 1%, reflecting even bigger falls in some European and Asian markets. London's main index lost about 1.7%, while the Hang Seng in Hong Kong slumped almost 3%. Here's Andrew Walker.
Once again, investors have been unnerved by rising COVID cases, in this case the highly transmissible Delta variant. The concerns have been eased by the vaccination programs in many developed economies, but they have not been entirely assuaged. There are other factors at play, however, notably a crackdown by regulators in China on technology firms that are traded on overseas stock markets. Among other actions, the ride-hailing business Didi has had its app blocked, ostensibly over data protection issues. Concerns about these moves have spilled over beyond China to unsettle investors in many other markets.
BBC World News.